I'm in a forest right now for my daily nature time, and it's honestly crazy to me how much you miss out when you're depressed and anxious. Like, you don't realize how good you have it. I have always been surrounded by this kind of nature, I mean, except for the 2 years that I spent in China. But even when I came back here and I was still majorly depressed, I still had all this around me. And it's honestly kind of crazy when you're depressed and you have a lot of good things around you, but your brain just focuses on all the negative stuff and what you don't have. And obviously, like, what you don't have can be a big deal. Like, for me, I literally had zero emotional support, and when you don't have something so crucial, you tend to just focus on that, right? Because it just leaves a big hole in your life. And I know it's really hard, but sometimes, even when you're feeling down, you have to realize how good you have it. Like, just in any other sense, like, sure, you might not have any emotional support, or sure, you might not have any friends, or you might feel extremely lonely. Hey, like, at least I have a forest I can go to, like, at least I can touch a pine cone, right? Like, I can look at the sky. I know this is like some basic ass shit, but sometimes just like fully realizing these things makes me so much more happy. And recently I just came to this big shift in my mindset that has honestly made my life 10 times better. Like, I'm not even joking. I feel like before, even though I was kind of aware that I was controlling my life, I didn't know how to not control my life, if that made any sense. Because to me, there was like two binaries. So one is that you go with the flow, but it's like you don't really challenge yourself. It's not like you're lying in bed all day, but it's just kind of like you're not really doing anything that makes you feel like, oh, like you're alive. Like, you don't have that edge. Or the other side is like you're just trying to control your life, like chasing after really hard goals, trying to run a marathon, having an extreme eating disorder. Not that those two things are like super correlated, but like trying to have extreme control over your life and the outcomes, feeling like you need to be this like perfect, like almost invincible person. And those were just the two extremes that I was always vacillating between. And I didn't like the idea of, like sitting back and like going with the flow. But also, every time I tried to do something extreme, every time I tried to control my life with like insane schedules, doing insane shit, pushing myself really hard, it also felt like I was just coping with something. And I'm someone who has, a lot of visions for the future, a lot of goals and a lot of dreams. And before, I used to always feel weighed down by them. I always felt like, if I chased after my goals and dreams, like I would not really enjoy the present moment. And I would honestly spend like hours and hours, like before, like 4 hours a day writing, doing all these intense activities, sacrificing my present moment for the future, or at least feeling like I was in control of my time. And honestly, sometimes I would be in this freeze mode where I wouldn't do anything. I would just overthink everything and I wouldn't put action into anything because it felt so intimidating to actually go after those goals, or I just knew that reality wouldn't live up to the perfect dream that I had in my head. And that would hold me back from doing a lot of things because a lot of times I wanted things my way. And there can be a lot of reasons for this. I feel like for me, it's because past a certain point in my life, I no longer felt safe. I felt a need to ensure that I was safe because a lot of times my life felt out of my control in like a bad way. So I felt like I had to, write this novel, where I had to work super hard at this, at that, to ensure a sense of stability, to ensure that I would be safe. It doesn't even have to be overwhelming yourself with work. It could honestly be doing nothing and lying in bed too. People self-sabotage all the time because then you can predict the outcome, right? If something really good happens to you and you self-sabotage, then like, okay, like I know things are going to go back to normal, or they're going to be worse, and I've been to normal before, or I've been to rock bottom before, and that's nothing new. But this new exciting opportunity, that's something new. So a lot of times people like to self-sabotage as well to maintain a sense of control. And I was just vacillating between the two, like working super hard to maintain the sense of control, or self-sabotaging so I know my life would be shit. So yeah, like I realized that I struggled a lot with feeling like I was safe, feeling like things were okay, that I didn't have to try to chase insane goals. You know, even this summer I was feeling a lot of feelings of I need to do this and this and this to ensure that I have a good future, or I have stability, or I have like a safety net I could rely on. I was thinking of all these ways to earn a ton of money so that I don't have to rely on anyone else for the rest of my life. And I realized it all comes back towards just that sense of not feeling safe if you're not ahead, not feeling safe if you're not in control, if you don't know the outcomes. And recently I realized that reality is never going to be what you want it to be in your head, and that doesn't even fucking matter at the end of the day. Everyone wants certain things, and then we want our desires to be fulfilled, but reality never plays out in like the perfect way that we want it to, like the perfect flawless way where you get into the school that you want, you get the perfect job, you know, you find the perfect partner, you find the perfect friend group. There's always going to be certain things that don't go your way. There's always going to be certain obstacles that you don't foresee, and that used to really bother me because I had, you know, this perfect vision of what life should be like in my head. And when life didn't meet those expectations, I was genuinely so crestfallen because I felt like life needed to meet those expectations in order for me to feel safe, in order for me to feel at peace. Otherwise, I was out of control. I didn't know what I was doing. A lot of times we don't like this feeling of vulnerability, right? This feeling that reality is so imperfect and we're so vulnerable, honestly, and we don't even know who we are, and we might die never finding out who we are. And there's always these uncertainties, and we tend to try to control everything and want everything to be our way, because otherwise, you know, in order to face what reality actually is, like, what the fuck is this? Like, we don't know, like, it's just so uncertain, right? And let's just say these days I've learned not to attach to the results of things anymore, because I realized, like, man, it doesn't even fucking matter. I know it's like not an easy pill to swallow, but it's like 0.001% chance that things are actually going to turn out the exact way that you want it to turn out. At the same time, it's like even the perfect vision you have for yourself in your head, that might not even be the best thing for you, right? Like, how the fuck are you supposed to know? Like, man, when I was 13, like, some of my ideas about the best things for me, if those things were true, I'd be like doing freaking computer science right now, and I don't want to do that. Sometimes if you always hold on to this idea of what you want life to be like, you're gonna miss out on a lot of shit. You're not gonna want to do things because you're like, oh shit, if I do this, like, maybe it won't turn out the way that I want. Like, if you're too attached to the result of stuff, you're just honestly holding yourself back. And these days I just do the actions that I want, right? And I don't really care about the results. It's not like I don't have any ambitions. Like, I'm still filming my videos, I'm still like writing, drawing, whatever. But at this point I realized some of the stuff that I produce, like this video, man, it might not even make sense. Like, a lot of things that I do will be so freaking imperfect. And now that I realize that reality is so imperfect and things are likely not going to go the way that you want it to go, and they're also valuable if they don't go the way that you want it to go, I stopped being so hesitant and actually chasing my dreams. It sounds strange, right? Because you would think that, oh, like, if you don't care about the results, like, you're not going to chase your dreams. But it's actually quite the opposite, because sometimes we care so much about the result, we're just frozen in place and we don't want to do anything because we're worried that any action we take is not going to be as good as we think. You know, realizing that, it released so much weight, honestly, because I was like holding on so closely to this idea of having to squeeze every single bit of my summer out to be so productive and like ensure that I was like, that I had this in place and I had that in place. If you keep on holding on to this perfect idea of life, you will miss out on life, like, as it actually is. Realizing that shit's not gonna go the way that you want it to go, and then you're free to do whatever the fuck you want, right? And even before, I was holding on so tightly to this idea of like making really good videos and blah blah blah, that I was actually less productive and I did less things. You know, I wanted to start filming at 6 a.m. but then suddenly I woke up at 8:30, and then now it's like, oh, I don't even want to film anymore because it's not perfect. I don't care anymore. I don't care. I'ma still do what I want to do. It's just the fact that the action itself is satisfying to me. I don't really care where it leads anymore, because I don't really care where it leads anymore, honestly. And this mindset has helped me overcome so many inhibitions. Like, even with talking to people, like, before I was like, oh my gosh, like, what if it's so awkward? Like, I'm going to this event, like, what if this happens? Like, what if I don't sound confident enough? And what if blah blah? And I'm like, well, shit's not gonna be perfect anyway. Like, maybe you try to talk to these people and they think that you're fucking weird and they hate you. Okay, like, that's fine. Like, it's not gonna be the way that you want it to be. And even if it's not the way that you want it to be, at least you got to speak to some people. Like, at least you got to experience something and you tried, and that's enough. That's honestly enough for me. If everything just went the way you wanted it to go, wouldn't life be so fucking boring? Like, let's be real here. I like the random shit, like the random meetings. Like, I wouldn't have met a lot of my friends if it weren't for like some random shit that happened. I stopped holding on to this idea of like a perfect future where I'm invulnerable and everything's perfect, because I know, like, man, I'm just like this, right? And I'm not like accepting myself like the way, like, all my flaws, whatever, I'm not gonna change ever. No, but I realize I won't be perfect, and I realize that life won't be perfect, and that's what makes it good. Honestly, that's what makes it good. What is the point of being so fucking anal and like thinking that everything needs to go your way? Like, it really is just a coping mechanism because you don't feel safe. You know, once you do a lot of healing, like, bro, I didn't just get here from day one. Like, if I even if I watched this video 4 years ago and I heard myself saying these things, I would be like, okay, like, that makes sense, like, sure, and then go back to like freaking trying to control my life. Because a lot of these like realizations, honestly, it just comes with time. It comes with so much healing, like your journey that just goes like this. Honestly, you know, you might listen to this and be like, okay, that kind of makes sense, or like you might disagree with it, but sometimes it's really hard to truly understand what I'm trying to say without, you know, going through the necessary process. But I'm just putting it out here as a little interesting thing to say about life, you know, as an interesting tidbit that I've learned so far. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and, you know, make sure to spend time in nature if you do have access in nature, because it really just soothes because it really soothes you. And, you know, like, take time to take time, if that makes sense, right? Like, just take time to slow things down a little bit. Just take a deep breath, and, you know, you don't have to rush everything. All right, see you guys.